So, I got married. Cue the wedding music. Shalom, this is Zoe, thatjewgirllew, and I'm so excited to talk about today's topic. First things first, as you might be able to tell, I am all moved into my apartment. I'm feeling a whole lot better, so things are really starting to get back into a rhythm again, so hopefully this means that I'm going to have videos out every other weekend. Thank you for your patience. Life has been crazy. Now, let's talk about my wedding. It wasn't really my wedding yet. But it was a reenactment of a wedding, an ancient Jewish wedding. So allow me to explain. So there's this pastor based out of California named Pastor J. McCarl, and he wrote a book called Before the Wrath. If you are a Jesus-believing individual such as myself, then you know that Jesus will be coming back, hopefully soon. And you can read all about this in the book of Revelation. It's the last and final book of the Bible. It's wild. Now in this book, Before the Wrath, Pastor Jay talks about the years of research he has done on this event, and he compares the second coming of Christ to the ancient wedding customs of the ancient Jewish people. Pastor Jay founded this organization called Biblical Dinner Ministries, where he goes around the country to different churches and gives biblical teachings on the Last Supper and Galilean weddings. And our church reached out to him about putting on these events, putting on one of these events, and I was invited to be the bride role in this event, and it was probably one of the most insightful and mind-blowing experiences I have ever had the honor of partaking in. I mean, being a part of the audience was probably one thing, but being able to be in it was something entirely different. And I highly recommend checking out Pastor J. McCarl's YouTube channel in this link below, where you can watch straight through some of these dinners and giving his book, Before the Wrath, a read when you have a chance. So, you may be asking, how the heck does the second coming of Christ have to do with a wedding? And what was this reenactment I got to partake in? Back in first century Israel, Jewish weddings were taken very seriously, and they were much different than what we know as the modern Western wedding traditions that we do today. I mean, there was no walking down the aisle, all slow and majestically. In fact, it was very, very loud. There was no cut the cake. In fact, there was no cake at all. There was bread, there was dried fruit, there was olives, nuts, and hummus. Lots and lots of hummus. I would not be complaining. In ancient Jewish customs, marriage was not a result of romance. In fact, the betrothal process began when the bride and the groom were just children, and it was arranged by their fathers.
And so I'm haggling with this guy, and we're talking, and suddenly I hear a squeal behind me, and it's a child, and it's deafening, but boy, it's loud and it's healthy. And I turn around, and there's some children playing there, and the squeal came from this little girl about 4 years old. And I go back to haggling, and wait a minute. And I stop and I look at the kids. The papa tells the little girl, be quiet, because they do that in the Middle East. And the little girl, she's obedient to her papa. She'd make a great wife for my son, who is 5 years old. Marriages in the Middle East, especially during the time of Jesus, are most often arranged. Arranged marriages is not what we do here. But marriages in the Middle East were being arranged very, very efficient. Love didn't matter, because arranged marriages actually brought two families together to become, as it were, one big extended family, not two families that were bound together by law.
I wish I had more time to go into every single detail, which is why I recommend you just read Pastor Jay's book or you just check out his YouTube channel. But basically the whole process of getting these two kids married took years, beginning with this covenant that was made between the father of the groom and the father of the bride. Much like the covenant that God made with his people. Now, when you read the New Testament, specifically the Gospels, when Jesus is speaking to his disciples or he's speaking to the people, he is careful to use language that they will understand. He uses farming terms like the vine, reap, sow. Weddings were a big part of Jewish culture, and they still are. And when Jesus spoke of his second coming, he used the image of a wedding to get this point across. In fact, he refers to the church as his bride, as a picture of his love for us. And as a bride waits for her groom to come get her, so we shall wait for that day when he comes back for his people. So please enjoy this compilation that I have assembled, filled with highlights from the ceremony. I'm very thankful for my good friend Loa, who is very good at her job and came in and got the footage of this while I was performing. So here it is, Shavua Tov.
Those of you who are married, if your wedding processional was anything like that, please come and see me for counseling afterwards. Wedding. 2,000 years ago in the Galilee region, even in the Judaic regions there, it would have been something like this. Here you have about a dozen people. In a real wedding processional, it could have been up into the hundreds. And you can imagine the noise level. This is a wedding. And it's the way it would have occurred a couple of thousand years ago during the time of Jesus. There are peculiarities to this wedding that are very different than anything you've ever experienced. Paul makes a statement which I think most of you in the room are familiar with, and you might wonder why I'm even making such a statement. He says to the Ephesians, "And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed to the day of redemption." They agree on the contents. And so it's read, and all the witnesses, and you are the witnesses, are watching, and do they agree? Wait a minute, the Middle Easterners, they kind of haggle a little bit still, they're going to be difficult. They agree. Would you please, before they sit down, give these folks a big hand? They've done so well. Thank you.
The covenant.
We're gonna redo the thing.
Okay. Or I'm gonna do that again. So, I got married last weekend. No, I didn't last weekend. It was in August. Or no, it was actually July. Oh my gosh. Right. Now, if you are a Jesus-believing individual, including myself, or if you if you are a Jesus-believing individual such as myself, or you're just curious, then, or not if you're curious, because you know he'll be coming back if you have salvation. Oh my goodness.
This is what it's going to be like. Let me illustrate this for you. This is what the disciples finally understood after Pentecost.